Dear brothers and sisters, peace be with you. Let us take a moment to quiet our hearts, to breathe, to listen, not just with our ears, but with our souls. There are voices that do not shout. There are cries that rise in silence. There are wounds in this world that speak louder than any words. Today, I invite you not with force, but with tenderness, to listen to those voices, the ones the world has forgotten, the ones that break God's heart. There is a kind of listening that goes deeper than sound. It is the listening of the heart, not the ears, not the mind alone, but the heart that feels, that weeps, that opens itself to the suffering of others. So many people speak today, and so few are heard. The world is full of noise, voices shouting for attention, for power, for control. But the voices that matter most are often the quietest. The child who cries herself to sleep in hunger. The migrant who crosses deserts and oceans hoping simply to live. The elderly man who sits by a window all day, waiting for someone to remember him. These are not loud voices, but God hears them. And He asks us, will you listen too? To listen like Jesus is to stop, to notice, to allow our hearts to be moved. He never rushed past the blind, the leper, the tax collector. He stopped, he looked, he listened. And from that listening flowed mercy. And from that mercy flowed healing. Real listening is the beginning of justice. It is the first act of love. It means setting aside our own need to be heard and making space for someone else's pain. It means tuning our hearts to the cries that the world has silenced. There are people in our own neighborhoods whose stories remain hidden. A single mother who smiles at the market but carries 1,000 fears. A young man struggling with addiction, aching for a second chance. A refugee who sweeps the floor in silence, wondering if he will ever be called by name. These are sacred stories, and they begin to be redeemed the moment we truly listen. So I ask you, gently, lovingly, whose voice have you not yet heard? Whose sorrow have you passed by in haste? Let us pray for hearts that are not afraid to break, because a heart that breaks for others is a heart where Christ lives. Let us listen, not once, not briefly, but often and with care. For when we listen to the voiceless, we are not just hearing them, we are hearing Him. And God is listening too. To speak with mercy is not to speak with weakness. It is to speak with the strength of love. True love. The kind that sees the whole person, even when the world sees only what is broken or wrong. How often do our words wound without our knowing? A careless comment, a harsh judgment, A truth spoken without compassion. It can close a heart rather than open it. But a word spoken with mercy, even if it is small, even if it is quiet, can lift a person from despair. I once met a man on the street who had been homeless for years. He told me he could endure the cold. He could live with hunger. What he couldn't bear anymore was being ignored, being spoken to like he was a problem, or worse, not spoken to at all. One day, a woman handed him a sandwich and simply said, "I see you. You matter." That was what stayed with him. Not the bread, but the mercy in her voice. A word of kindness became a shelter. Jesus, too, spoke with mercy. To the woman caught in sin, he did not speak first of her guilt, but of her dignity. To the thief on the cross, he did not list his crimes, but promised him paradise. To Peter, who denied him 3 times, he did not rebuke, but asked tenderly, "Do you love me?" His words were always truth, but truth wrapped in mercy, never used as a weapon, always as a balm. We are called to do the same, to speak truth, yes, but truth in love. To correct, yes, but with gentleness. To stand up for what is right, but never without remembering the person before us is a child of God. Even those we disagree with, even those who have hurt us. So I ask you, when you speak at home, at work, online, in passing, do your words build or do they break? Do they reflect the mercy of the one who speaks your name with love every day? Let us ask for the grace to speak more softly, to bless more freely, and to choose mercy in every word. Because every voice matters, and every voice can heal if it speaks in love. To walk with the forgotten is to walk the road Jesus walked. It is not a road of comfort or applause. It is often dusty, hidden, and slow. But it is sacred. It is where love becomes flesh, where compassion takes the shape of footsteps, hands, presence. Not ideas, not speeches, not grand gestures, just presence. There is a woman who visits the same nursing home every week. She sits beside the same man who no longer remembers her name. He barely speaks now. But she brings him tea, combs his thinning hair, tells him the same story over and over. When asked why she continues, she simply says, "Because he is still someone. He is still loved." This is the gospel. This is what it means to walk with those the world forgets. Jesus did not rush through the crowd. He stopped for Bartimaeus, the blind man crying out on the roadside. He knelt beside the leper no one would touch. He saw the widow as she dropped 2 small coins and called it greatness. He walks slowly, intentionally with those others overlook, and he invites us to do the same. To walk with the forgotten is not to fix their lives, but to honor them, to say with your presence, you are not alone. This is where dignity is restored, not through solutions alone, but through communion, through friendship, through faithfulness. You do not need to cross oceans. Sometimes the forgotten are just down the street. A neighbor who lives alone, a colleague whose silence hides sorrow, a child who waits for someone to notice. Walking with them is not complicated, but it does require love. And love always costs something. It costs time. It costs comfort. It costs the willingness to be interrupted. So let us walk, not in haste, not to be seen, but with hearts ready to stay beside those who have been left behind. Let us walk with them as Christ walks with us, quietly, tenderly, faithfully, always. To stand where it's uncomfortable is often where love more becomes real. It is easy to love when love is returned. It is easy to speak when the crowd agrees. But the gospel calls us to more. It calls us to the edge, to the margins, to the places where love is most needed and least expected. That is where Jesus stands. There was once a young teacher who noticed a student always sitting alone, quiet, withdrawn. Others avoided him. He was different. They said, strange, but she made space beside him. She spoke gently, called him by name. Slowly he smiled. Slowly he returned. She didn't change his life overnight, but she stood with him in his loneliness. Even when it called her approval from others. That is where holiness begins, not in ease, but in courage shaped by mercy. Jesus stood with the woman, accused, as stones were ready in hands. He stood with the lepers outside the city walls. He stood with the poor, the sinners, the ones society called unclean. He stood in places of discomfort, because that is where the Father's love was most needed. He still stands there today. And he asked, will you come too? To be a voice for the voiceless, being willing to be misunderstood. To love the outcast means being pushed to the side ourselves. But we must not be afraid. The cross is not comfortable, but it is the way of life. The resurrection did not come from the center of power. It came from the empty tomb, from silence, from a place no one expected. Let us go where it is difficult, not with anger, but with love. Not to shout, but to serve. Not to win, but to witness. There in the discomfort, Christ is waiting. There in the struggle, the kingdom grows. So do not fear the edge. That is where light is needed. That is where hope must be planted. That is where we are called to go, not alone, but with Him who goes before us. Always. Hope is always possible. even when the night feels too long, even when the world seems too heavy, too wounded, too far gone. Hope does not come from headlines or numbers or strong leaders. It comes from God, and it begins small, like a mustard seed, like a whisper, like a light in the window of a house where someone still waits and still believes. I remember a grandmother who lost everything in a flood. Her home, her photographs, even her Bible. But when I sat with her, she smiled and said, "The water took many things, but not my faith. God is still with me." That is hope. Not denial, not escape, but trust. A trust that God is present even in the ruins. A trust that tomorrow is still possible. Jesus never gave false promises. He did not say the road would be easy, but he always said, "Do not be afraid." And he meant it, because he is with us in every valley, in every storm, in every hidden act of love that no one else sees. Hope is a choice we make again and again. When we smile at a stranger, when we forgive, when we care for the sick, the elderly, the forgotten, when we believe that even one small act of love can ripple outward and touch the world. You may feel small. You may feel unseen. Remember this: God sees you. God knows your heart. And God can do beautiful things with even the smallest gesture made in love. So let us not give in to despair. Let us not grow tired of doing good. The world needs hope, quiet hope, steady hope, living hope. And that hope can begin with you. Let us carry it gently but boldly. Let us plant it wherever we go. Let us become the ones who believe, even when others have stopped believing. Because in every dark corner, hope is still possible. And where there is hope, there is God. Dear brothers and sisters, we have listened, we have reflected, we have allowed the silent voices to speak to our hearts. And now we are called not to walk away unchanged, but to walk forward, carrying the light we have received. Let us be voices for the voiceless, not just in words, but in how we live, in how we serve, in how we love. Let us remember that God is listening not only to their cries, but to our response, to the choices we make, to the hands we extend, to the silence we break with mercy. The path ahead may not be easy. It will ask something of you. It will ask for courage when it is easier to remain silent. It will ask for tenderness when the world offers only indifference. But do not be afraid. You are not alone. Christ walks with you. His Spirit strengthens you. His love leads you. Be faithful in the small things. Be steadfast in hope. Be radiant in love. And when you feel discouraged, remember, every act of compassion matters. Every voice raised in truth echoes in eternity. So go forth with hearts open and eyes wide. Be a light, be a shelter, be a voice. Good luck on this journey of love and justice. And from the depths of my heart, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And thank you for saying yes to the gospel of mercy. May God bless you and keep you always in His peace.